Old Schoolhouse. This is going to be a real treat. We really appreciate each and every one of you tuning in. So, as a thank you, we're going to be giving away some fun prizes, which we'll share with you in a bit. Anyone who comments during this interview will be entered to win one of these prizes. If you could go ahead and take a minute right now and share this video so we can get it out there to homeschoolers far and wide, please do so. Please also comment and like. And this is great. We have a brand new feature that we're including in this interview, which is we are going to be choosing a few of you to actually come on air and ask Gena a homeschooling question. So as Gena and I are chatting, leave your questions in the comments. And if you would like to come on the show, simply write the word live in bold letters next to your question. And then keep your eye on your messages in Facebook Messenger, because if you're chosen, we'll send you a link, which you will click immediately and you'll be entered into the studio. So without further ado, I'm pleased to introduce you, though most of you already know her, is Gena Suarez, the publisher, along with her husband, Paul. They are publishers of the leading homeschool magazine on the market, the Old Schoolhouse magazine. She grew a simple newsletter to a quarterly print found in Barnes & Noble, Walmart, Target, and multiple Christian bookstores, as well as indie homeschool education stores nationwide. She's an inspiration to so many homeschoolers across the globe, and I am absolutely honored to be able to have this opportunity to interview her today. Hi, Gena. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Hi, Heather. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So you are the publisher of the leading homeschool magazine. So my first question for you, which I would love to know, is what led you to homeschool your children?
We started homeschooling our kids a very long time ago. Our oldest is 31 years old. And so going back in my memory, we've got 7 children. So the youngest one is 8, and we're still homeschooling him, of course. And then we have a 11 and a 13. So those are the 3 that are still being homeschooled. We did it. I feel like we had 2 different homeschooling careers. We homeschooled the first 4, and they're all graduated and married or in careers and have kids. And then the second 3, which we had an 11-year span between the youngest of the first 4, and then we waited 11 years and had 3 more.
Wow.
Those are still being homeschooled. And so really the reasons are the same. It's fascinating when you go back and you think about your why. And honestly, in the very, very, very beginning, when I was in my early 20s, I don't know why. It was a little bit trendy at our church. And so I was interested in hearing some of the older moms talk about it. And their kids were good and their kids were smart and they had good manners. And I had a couple of little toddlers. And so we were figuring out, what are we going to do for education? And we kind of thought, I kind of thought there's a public school down the road. Let's go and let's just check out the kindergarten program. But my husband was like, no, we're not doing that. When we were dating, when I was 19 years old and I met my husband, we were dating. And during that time, he actually said, what do you think if someday when we have kids, we homeschool them? And I was like, no, homeschoolers are weird. I literally told him that. I said, they're so weird. He goes, what are you talking about? And I said, well, down the street, there's a family in this neighborhood that, this is back in California. I said, they're weird. They're just, and of course they weren't weird. I look back now, I was weird. I was a goofy 19-year-old. But he knew people. He knew a pastor and his wife, and they homeschooled. And he goes, I'm impressed with the kids. I'm impressed with how they treat their parents. I'm impressed with just the academics and how well they do. And so it was a conversation even before we got married. And lo and behold, when the oldest one was almost 5 years old, we had to make some decisions and we ended up homeschooling him. We have homeschooled all 7 of them and we haven't looked back. I don't regret it. Not for a minute.
Wow. I just couldn't imagine having the first batch and then the second batch. Wow, we have Martel watching from the Philippines. That's awesome. Looking at the first batch, I hate wording it like that. And then your second group of kids. Do you feel like you changed your? Do you feel like it was easier the second time around because you kind of knew what to expect?
I do, because when you're first doing it, you're first setting out to homeschool. You're a sponge. You're learning. You're in learning mode with the kids, and there's a learning curve that's really big, and most parents would agree that they're figuring out, well, what method am I going to use? I've heard of classical, I've heard of Charlotte Mason, I've heard of unschooling, I've heard of traditional approach where you maybe get some curriculum from Bob Jones University Press, or maybe a Becca or Liberty. There's several of them, and it's a conversation that happens in churches and with moms, and that's why homeschooling has grown so quickly, because parents are very social. That's why homeschool kids are very social, contrary to what
Mhm.
some think. Um, Generally, the parents are too, and the moms are talking and they're figuring it out with the rest of them, and they're giving advice and they're asking questions. And that's where I was. I was in the chair, the learning chair, asking the older moms, what do you do? What is classical? What is, what are these things? And I was very blessed to have friends who held my hand along the way. But yeah, once I had the second, when Paul and I had the second group of kids, the second batch of eggs, they they came along, and I feel like it's been easier in some ways. For one thing, the older ones help with the younger, so we
Yeah.
definitely built in babysitters, built in helpers, older kids reading to little kids, things like that, and that has been helpful. And by now, we know we're kind of set in our ways. We know what works for us and what has worked for our family. And these three, interestingly, they have a better education, and the older ones would tell you that. The younger ones, they just think they get too much work. But the older ones would say, "Man, I wasn't learning Latin when I was their age," that sort of thing. And so that's been good. So it's great, because guess what? One of these days you're going to be helping your kids homeschool your grandkids, and just having a little bit of that experience there is only helpful. It's not going to steer you wrong to have it.
I think a good takeaway from that is it really does get easier because I mean, sure, as you add the kids on, obviously it's challenging just as a parent, but I have 5 kids, and my older ones, like you said, they totally help with the younger ones. I know what doesn't work, and I kind of feel bad that my first few were my guinea pigs. But now now I'm like, okay, I know what works, and I still have a lot to learn, but it does get easier in that sense. So for all those new moms out there who might be stressing or worried if they're pregnant and they have another kid on the way, like, how am I going to do this? You can't do it.
Absolutely. And what's interesting is that if you look at the statistics, because there are many surveys that have been made, and very, very high quality surveys, like by Dr. Brian Ray. If you go to NHERI.org, that's NHERI.org, you will have so many statistics that really bear out the the benefits of homeschooling and how homeschool graduates are doing. And so we go to conferences all the time. We go to conventions. In fact, we just got ourselves a booth in the FPEA, the big Florida convention will be there, as well as Denver and some others. And you'll find when you go to these conventions, look at the big long aisle that's dedicated to the higher education. So we're talking colleges that are purchasing display booths at homeschool conventions because they want to attract homeschool grads to their campuses. They know what the statistics have been bearing out all these years, which is homeschool graduates across the board, they score higher on their SATs, they score higher on their ACTs, they do better. And the colleges, including Stanford's, we've seen Stanford
Wow.
at conferences. They know that homeschoolers are going to show up and they're going to know how to study already. They're going to be serious. They're going to be the ones tutoring the other kids, and they don't tear up their campuses for the most part. They're usually pretty well behaved. And so that has been very helpful too, as being able to watch that and see that. I feel like any parent, if they just apply themselves a little bit, learn about it, can do it, and
Yeah.
can do it successfully. And you know what? Even the worst homeschooling situation, for some reason, these kids again across the board, they do better than the public school kids, the public school
Yeah.
graduates. They end up doing better anyway. I think it's because they have more time to kind of go after their own desires and explore their own passions. If they have an engineer brain, the mom knows the kid. They're going to let them
Right.
do the engineer stuff. I have a couple of kids who are like that, and I have other kids who are literary giants. They just want to
Yeah.
read all day or whatever. And it's so important to know your kid and then to
Yeah.
customize it for their interest.
Exactly. That's so true. Right. And there's so many resources out there. I imagine when you first started homeschooling, there was, XYZ that you could choose from, and now there's the whole gamut. So, so much has changed over the years for sure.
Definitely more resources are available. In fact, back in the 80s, when people were first starting to really, it was catching on. I've talked to these parents because we started in the 90s. Our kids were born in the early 90s. And so But I remember people telling me, parents saying, you know what, 10 years ago when I was homeschooling, there was no curriculum. In fact, certain huge companies, and I won't even name names, but because they're great homeschooling companies and they provide and they're good with their resources, but some of them refused to sell to homeschool parents in the earlier days. I think
Wow.
everyone was still trying to figure out what's legal, what's not,
Yeah.
or whatever. But then there were other companies that were like jumping on board in the 80s saying, well, we'll sell our curriculum. You can purchase it and we'll help you. We'll give you support. We'll give you answer keys. We want you to succeed. And that has been really neat. And I'm happy that those companies are still in the lead today. They're still doing good.
Yeah.
And they were a blessing to these early pioneers, and I'm happy that they're still doing well.
Yeah, and we're seeing more and more of them coming forward to help homeschoolers. And even in my area, like a lot of organizations, they used to not want anything to do with homeschoolers, and now the local museums, they'll let the homeschoolers come in, have a booth or in like the science fair and
Mhm.
competing against the public schoolers, and then they'll have the homeschoolers right there with them. So I feel like, a lot has changed, and it's good for the homeschool community.
It has changed, and it's a good thing. It's a really good thing. And as homeschooling has grown, I think these parents incoming, the ones coming into the community, they feel welcome. You got companies and organizations, like you said, museums and aquariums and, um, you know, places that really specialize in the arts. They value these homeschool kids. They want to fill their seats. They're smart. They're going to market to this growing niche. And I think it's good. It's encouraging everybody. It's good all the way around. It's a win-win.
So, for those of you just tuning in, I just want to let you know that if you have a question for Gena, then you can leave a comment and just write the word live, and we will bring you right into the interview. And just want to share that we have a few items that we want to give away, and we'll put that up on the screen here. We're going to give not anyone who leaves a comment, but if you leave a comment, you will be entered to win a $25 Amazon gift card or one of our gorgeous new 4 Pillars totes. These totes are highlighting the pillars of the old schoolhouse, which are faith, knowledge, hope, and future. And 2 winners will receive a Hey Mama Bear mug. So these are really fun. So leave a comment and you might be able to win one of these prizes. So, Gena, do you have one of those totes to show us what
Yes,
these 4 pillar totes look like?
I do. Here's this one's blue. You can see that.
That is gorgeous. So these are different than other totes because this is an insulated bag, right? This is awesome.
Yeah, they're insulated. So, and they're roomy. So you can get a lot of picnic items in there. They're very roomy.
Cool.
This one, here's a black one right here.
Awesome.
My lighting is bad. I'm not on the deck. And so I've got the lights on, the deck lights on. It's kind of goldy. This one's teal. It looks green. They call it teal. I say it's green. It's almost an olive green, but they call it.
It's pretty.
This one's been the most popular one, I was just told today. And then we have another one that's brown. It's a mocha color. So
Cool.
they're fun. And they're great to take to the picnic with your kids. Got to keep your stuff nice and cold. So.
Awesome. So yeah, this tote is also, you will get that if you purchase a membership right now. Tomorrow actually is the last day of the schoolhouseteachers.com Hey Mama, We've Got Your Back sale. Normally a quarterly membership is $49.97, but with this sale, you can get it for $39 using the code support, and you will get one of these awesome totes. So
yeah, we'll mail it out to you. Plus, you get the magazine. You get the old Schoolhouse magazine as well.
Yes.
At your doorstep. So
right here. This is the most recent. It's gorgeous. I think it's so pretty.
It is. It's a pretty one.
I also wanted to show the winter one. I think this one was really popular with all the horse articles in there. You just never know what to expect. There's 4 year, and they're always different themes. With really quality content, authors and convention speakers.
That's right. We have good writers, and we try to actually focus every single issue on a career, a theme. So like we have one that's coming up, if your child wants to be a doctor when they grow up, and that one's a real fun one. We're working on it now. And any kind of a lab field or medical field, technicians, doctors, pharmacy, all of that we'll be covering. And it's just fun because we get parents who say, well, my kid is saying they want to be a doctor. I'm a homeschool family. What am I? What do I do now? There's a lot you can do now. A lot you can do, even with the little ones, to start preparing them. And of course, the little kids, they all say that they want to do everything. I want to be I remember my 3-year-old telling me he wants to grow up and be a race car. It's like a race car driver? No, just a race car. You know, I don't. You take that with a grain of salt.
That's so cute.
A little, but some of our kids. I mean, we have a 10-year. Our daughter, when she was 9, got into violin. We really didn't expect her to do anything with it because every kid wants every instrument, and you buy it for them, and it sits and it collects dust. And she just picked that violin up, and now she's playing guitar and ukulele and violin
Wow.
really, really well. So you never know. And if you just
Yeah.
you want to be available to explore those interests with them. But yeah, if you have a kid that's like 10 or 12 or 15, talking medical, talking medicine, talking it's so crucial to just start to point them in that direction and at least see for then they can see for themselves, do I really like that?
Yeah.
Do I really want to do that? Oh no, I'm
Right.
afraid of blood. I don't want to do that. I'm so afraid of blood. That would have been me.
Mm-hmm.
I was a little kid. I wanted to be a doctor too. And then I saw blood one like, no, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I mean, it's part of your childhood, but some of these kids, they know at 10 or 12
Yeah.
what they're going to be. And I know a couple of kids who at age 10 have already purchased houses. No joke. They are in
Wow.
flipping houses. Of course, they've got parents that are helping them. So anyway, there's just a lot of fun with customizing your kids' interests. And so we try to do that in the magazine, try to have these
Yeah.
career different focuses and share a little bit about a pathway
Yeah.
that you take in order to go after, to pursue some of those.
And there's kids that come back and say they love the articles because it is geared towards these professions. So I've seen, kids just really, they get really excited when they read the articles about, the different professions. So it's not just for the parents.
No, they read them too. We get letters where the kids are reading as well. We like that. We definitely like that.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, so we have a question from Alicia. What sort of resources do you recommend to a new homeschooling family to help them feel more confident getting started?
resources, and we're surrounded these days with resources. So the first step would be talking to your kids about, well, what are your interests? What do you want to study? What do you want to be when you grow up? Things like that. Um, so there's the library, and there's the general places that you would go after resources. But we tell people, and we have radio ads about this too. There's a website. We have a website. It's called tryhomeschooling.com. So just tryhomeschooling.com. And when you go there, it really helps you figure out how to get started. It gives you this, we point you to your state's laws. We point you to your state organizations. There's organizations in every state that'll help you literally hold your hand, get you started, no matter what state, in many countries as well. Also on that page, we give you free curriculum. We actually give you stuff, unit studies and all sorts of things that you can actually start printing off and doing that very day. It's all free. All of this is free. So I would say go there first, have a look around, and then start asking questions. Start talking to people who are homeschooling, or contact us. We've got reps standing by at schoolhouseteachers.com. You can actually go there and hit the chat box, and there's all sorts of counselors right there, people who act as advisors, and they'll give you honest answers because all of them homeschooled their own kids. So those are some good maybe some first steps.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I have another question. What is the most challenging part of homeschooling? What was the most challenging part of homeschooling for you and your family in the early days?
New homeschooling parents are still trying to get their feet under them. And that was us. We were still we were juggling careers, and my husband was working full time. 3 years into the magazine's this company is 20 years old, and so 3 years into it, he came home. That was a real blessing. So he has really helped remove those challenges by the two of us being home with the kids all the time, and we work together to homeschool them and to run the business and to do everything in between. But I think with the average family, the most challenging part is just getting into the routine and getting a plan together and try and sticking with it. There are people sometimes that they get overwhelmed and they say, I can't do this. It's too hard. It's too much. And then they quit. And for the most part, what we have seen when we hear that is that a family is putting too much pressure on themselves.
Yeah.
They're trying to do too much at once. They're trying to learn it all at once and do it all at once. And it really doesn't work that way. A homeschooling journey kind of, the kids are learning, but so are the parents. You are really on a learning curve, and you have to have grace for yourself. You have to have grace for your kids, and you really have to look at it as a commitment and long term. So you might ask yourself, well, why? Okay, why am I homeschooling? Well, I'm homeschooling because I feel that that's what the Lord has called us to do. God has put us on this path. He's going to see us through it. We Christian kids, they really don't belong in the public school system. Think about it. Think about what's going on there. They're away from you all day long, and they're being really, it's antagonistic to the gospel. God's not even allowed there, really, if you think about it. And so when that becomes a reality with parents, when that realization kind of hits them that, no, I don't think so. I don't want someone else raising my kids. Then they look at it more like a conviction. It's more, the commitment is a little easier to keep, but that's where it becomes very important to have that grace for yourself and for your spouse and for your children. And some days you get so overwhelmed. We hear it, parents get so overwhelmed and their kids aren't cooperating and they haven't gotten enough done that day, and the dishes are a mess, and all they've managed to do is one math paper, and they're frustrated. You see them on Facebook or they've called in or whatever. And what we tell them is put everything away, go clean up your kitchen, and then get your kids and go to the park or go to a museum. Because you know what? Homeschooling is not supposed to be about the public school system. I know we're used to it. We all went to public school and the bell rings and we're like these little sheep that jump up when that bell rings and we want to follow and go somewhere. But you're homeschooling and you're not a sheep and you don't have a bell. And the mama is the bell. And so if the mama says, hey, we're going to the park, we're going to play, we're going to get PE, and we're going to talk to other moms, and maybe that mom just needs a little bit of refueling herself and to talk to other moms, and maybe those kids just need to play and work out some of the energy. I know my 8-year-old, oh my goodness, if we don't go, like tomorrow, we're off to the roller skating rink. If we don't let that kid get his energy out, we're going to be in trouble. And then there's a new day. Tomorrow is a new day, and get out the stuff and try again, start over. If you think about the public, again, I don't want to keep saying the public school system, but any school, really, any school situation, there's a lot of wasted time. Do you remember standing in line for hours on end? Sometimes it felt like, and coloring all the busy work, staying in the lines and paint by number. And oh my goodness, there's so much wasted time in the school system. You can get a lot more done. You just get serious and sit down and do your stuff. You're only educating one person or two or four. You're not doing a classroom of 30 and trying to bring everybody to that same baseline level where they're all kind of clones. You are educating and you're customizing it to them and their interests and where they're at academically. Here's the other thing. Some kids, like my son, Zion, he's 8 years old. So I guess he's third grade. We don't really do grades, but he's third grade. But his math book doesn't say third grade. His math book says maybe second grade, but his reading book maybe says fifth grade. And so kids are not eggs, they're children. And so the whole grading thing really is put there because of a situation where these teachers had to educate a whole bunch of children at once. So they kind of graded everybody. And
you don't need it at home.
You don't. And so some parents make a mistake where they've got the third grade book and the kid is like, I am not ready for that. Please don't make me, I'm not ready. Especially a little boy. They're not reading as quickly maybe as your daughter was. And so it's neat to be able to just relax a little bit and just learn with your kid. They're going to get it done. You're going to get it done. And guess what? If you don't get it done, then do it during the summer too. Around.
That's what we do. It gives me so much more freedom. I can take a week off here, week off there, and I don't feel any pressure.
No, you shouldn't. You shouldn't feel any pressure because those kids are smart. And if you're making learning fun, it's going to stick. I remember being in public school and I couldn't, it wouldn't stick. Because, you have to learn what they want you to. You get it on the test, you spit it out, and then you forget the next day. It wasn't fun. It wasn't something I committed to memory. But these kids, what they're learning, they're doing it with their friends. They're doing it with me or their father, and it's fun, and they're remembering it. That's real education right there. If if they
Yeah.
remember it,
Mhm.
retain it, you know.
So as you were talking, you were mentioning how well it's just so different. The public school way of education and homeschooling is so different. And you just came out with a resource recently, the homeschooling primer. And
Mhm.
I feel like that is so good for the new homeschooling parent who is trying to do school at home. And this really shows parents, that when you homeschool, it's not like you're just bringing school at home, but it's a whole new world. It's like you're opening the door and you don't know what to expect. You're just like, oh,
Yeah,
wow, I had no idea this is what homeschooling was because it's a mentality, a philosophy. It's not, you don't know what it is till you do it really. Even if you know homeschool families, unless
right.
you're doing it, you don't know what it is, I
Right.
would say. So could
So,
you tell us about this homeschooling primer?
yeah, we created it when the whole pandemic hit, when things hit because we were bombarded. I kid you not, I have never seen so much traffic to our websites or people coming on board at schoolhouseteachers.com, subscribing to the magazine, just contacting us online because all of a sudden the whole world found out they were homeschooling and it happened overnight. And some people opted to do the Zoom thing with their schools, but a lot of people didn't. They just said, forget it. This isn't going to work. We're going to just, I have a neighbor who homeschools, or my friend homeschools, and or my sister homeschools, and so homeschooling has grown. It has grown big time. And so when that happened, when all of that hit, and we got real busy, we had to hire a whole bunch of new people just to keep up with this growth. And we decided to publish this little primer, however you say it, the homeschoolingprimer.com. You can go there and get it for free. It's free. Um, and it was the purpose of it, and we had several authors write it. They wrote about specific methods of homeschooling, different types, different ways. Some parents really just identify more with a more relaxed approach, maybe, and some might want a more not canned, but a more rigid, and I would say find a happy medium, and everybody does. When you start homeschooling, you start at one end of the scale or another, and then you swing to the middle, hopefully, in your balance. But this book kind of shares different ways to homeschool, just different mindsets that may work for one family, may not work for others, but you can see yourself in at least one of them, maybe two or three of them, and then you can mix and match and combine, and it doesn't cost anything. You come in and get the book, it's free, and it's not real thick, it's just thin, but it's full of great information on how to get started and what to do once you are starting.
Yeah, that's an excellent resource. I was so excited you guys put that out there because it's just so helpful for so many people.
Yeah, yeah, it's been good.
So Alicia is saying, having grace for myself is hard. So many times I feel like I'm not doing enough. How do you overcome that feeling?
How would you counsel somebody who you knew was coming down too hard on themselves? You have to take yourself kind of outside of that box because most of us homeschool moms, we do have grace for others. We see a mom, and if she's crying, if she's there at the homeschool group and she's crying, or she's beside herself and her kids aren't behaving, or maybe there's marriage problems, or maybe the finances are hard. What do we do as homeschool moms? We're like right there. Can I bring you a meal? Let me give you $10. Would that help? I mean, that's how I see it all the time with homeschool moms. They are, for the most part, very gracious. And I think the reason for it is a lot of homeschoolers are Christians. A lot of them are coming out of churches and they're learning about homeschooling from their friends and their pastors and from other Christians. And so they already have the Lord. They have the love of Christ in them, and they want to, if they see that somebody is hurting in any way, they want to fix it. That's a mom for you. And so I think you kind of have to look at it yourself that way. If you are going to comfort another mom who's feeling overwhelmed and she's struggling, maybe her kid is not acting right, and you're like, I've been there, done that. What do? You comfort her. You have grace for her. You show her grace. You don't walk by and just give her the cold shoulder. And you got to do it for yourself as well. You have to put it in perspective and remember, you know what? I'm that mom today. I'm overwhelmed. I need to, and you just kind of talk yourself off the ledge, I think.
Yeah.
And you just say to yourself, God has put me here. The Lord has put me on this path, and this is a journey, and I'm going to complete it, because the alternative is to have somebody else raise my child, and that's not going to work at all. And academics are never perfect. And look at any public school system. Do you see academics being perfect anywhere there. No, you really do have a few diamonds in the rough, and they come through public school, and God keeps them, and God is faithful anyway. But I think we have to have that grace for ourselves. And if we can't seem to muster that up, then remember, gee, I just had grace for my neighbor last week. Maybe I could have a little for myself too. And put everything away and go play. Play with your kids. Build relationship. Because that's going to be more lasting.
Yeah.
The kids are going to remember the
Exactly.
fun times. They're not going to remember the math papers and that they learned a square root of this and that and the other. They're going to remember. Look what mom did. Look what we did as a family. And do art, do crafts, whatever is fun, whatever you're passionate about. Make
Yeah.
your kids passionate about those things too.
Yeah. That's good advice.
Hmm.
Um, Destry says, I'm okay with picking the parts of curriculum that work for us and getting work done. We are learning and going out and doing things. My biggest problem is one of my kids desperately needs a friend. We do belong to a couple of groups, but there just isn't someone that he can connect with. How can I fix this? It's breaking my heart.
It's a good question because it's not an academic question. She's not saying, my kid is behind in math and what do I do? Because then my answer would be, don't worry about it. He's going to catch up. Just keep working. But this is an area that hits home for me too. Again, I have 7 children. I have one child who this hits home very hard for. And this child also desperately wants friends. And this child has made friends this year, but a year ago, that is exactly where we were at with this kid, and it was breaking my heart as well. And I just kept thinking, why can't I find a group that has a kid that's going to be like-minded enough to my kid where they're going to connect and they're going to click. But I think that when that finally does happen, because my kid since then has found friends, when that finally does happen, I think that there's an appreciation. Your kid is like, I found my best friend, and there's such a level of appreciation that maybe isn't there for the kid who always has a ton of friends around, and they just have they have their best friend that they've had from birth or whatever. When a kid finds that one that clicks with them, it's very special, and it's a good teaching ground for your kid to pull them aside and say, you know what, that life's not about always having a best friend. I agree with you. I want you to have friends, and let's keep going. And then they continue to pursue, and they continue to show up. Life is
Yeah.
about showing up. And so let's go to the groups. Maybe today there's a new person, a new family that's joining, or maybe at church, if they have a specific program, a play or a singing group or the choir, get involved. And so I would just encourage your kid to get involved. It will happen, and then they
Yeah.
will appreciate it. They will appreciate it so much. And then your heart will not be as broken, but I get it. My heart has also broken for my kid, especially when I see other kids looking at my kid and walking away. It's like,
Aw.
I got a nerd here. I got this little nerd. No, but it's life. And it's better than being in public school where they're getting their head bashed into the locker. I mean, you just have
Yeah.
chats with them, and really, your kids should almost view you as their best friends at first. That's where the trust is building and the relationship is growing, and you can talk so much to your kids about all of it. I feel like my kids are so far ahead, much further ahead than I was when I was in public school.
Yeah.
Nobody ever talked to me about this stuff. Nobody ever told me, well, Gina, if you want to have a friend, why don't you start smiling at people more? Why don't you be a friend? Why don't nobody ever, you just had to figure it out because your
Yeah.
peers are raising you. You're not, your parents can
Wow.
only have a few minutes at night with you,
That's a
basically.
good point.
The teachers send you home with so much homework. I remember going home and working for 4 hours sometimes, and then my parents would go to bed, and I may not see them at all that day. There weren't a lot of moments, special teaching moments. There was no quantity. So where do you get the quality time from if there's no quantity to pull it from? As a homeschool mom, my daughter and I, we talk, and she's come very far, and
Mhm.
it's a beautiful thing to see. So patience, that's my answer. Be patient and keep pursuing relationships with people, and teach your kid to be so nice to people,
Yeah.
to go after the underdog and to be there for them. And they're going to be so popular, they're not going to know what to do with all their all their friends. Pretty soon, you wait.
Aw.
Seen it over and over.
For you, what has been the most rewarding aspect of homeschooling?
Relationship. My daughter is 24. She's married. She has 2 babies, and I thank God that we homeschooled her. I know her. She knows me. We are tight. We are basically best friends, and I would never have had that had she been gone all the time. I wouldn't know her, and I think there would be attitudes that I would have to put up with because when you're homeschooling your kid, you can work on their character. And this particular girl, Julia, she didn't have character issues in the way that some kids do. She was probably one of my better behaved kids. But if they're gone all day, they're going to get those attitudes. They're going to come home with them. I promise you. You're going to have issues if you've got their peers raising them instead of you
Yeah.
raising them. So yeah, relationship hands down. I think you could ask any homeschool mom that who's graduated kids. And my son Levi, man, he calls us constantly. He lives in Denver. He works for Aspen Dental, and they've put him over all of Colorado. They're opening up Colorado, and he's such an achiever, but he still makes time for us. He's still on the plane as often as he can, coming home and spending time with us. And it's relationship. But had I
Yeah.
not seen him, had I just sent him off to school, had we not been in every part of his life and his achievements and all the things that he kept looking at us
Mm,
for approval for, all of those things, who would he be? He would just be someone we kind of used to know. I know, I guess
wow.
it really does make a difference if you are with them all the time. Then you know them, and they know you.
Yeah.
Relationship.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Who do you turn to for support and encouragement?
I am so encouraged and supported by our staff. TOS Magazine has exploded in growth over the last 20 years. I never dreamed it would be like this. It's enormous. And we have the number of people on payroll is over 120. I don't even know how many anymore. And I've not met half of them. God has just grown it like crazy. And there are, especially those in management, the ones who tell me what to do, the ones who get on the phone and say, why don't you in this meeting, get in here, and give me my schedules and things like that. They bless me. They are the ones who help me most because my kids, the first ones are grown. The second ones we're on a pretty good track. We are in homeschool groups. We are definitely part of different groups. We go to church. We have a lot of friends. Those people encourage me and support me. Number one is my husband. If I have any issue whatsoever, he is all ears. He's always been all ears, and I'm so grateful for him. Paul is he is my superhero. But our staff, we have a great staff, and you know that, Heather, because you're in management, and we just have fun. We have a great, light-hearted group of people, and I have picked up the phone and called managers and said, "Tell me what to do," and
Mhm.
they are right there. So our senior editor, Deborah Wooler, she's probably my best friend in the whole world. She and Angela, our CEO, they are the ones that if I have an issue, I'm calling them. So you got to make sure you got those people in your life. You got to do
It's
it.
true.
You
Yeah,
never
it's
are
a
alone.
wonderful group.
Yes, it is. Such a blessing.
What advice would you give to a new homeschool mom? I think somebody did already ask this. Do you have any other advice?
Definitely that tryhomeschooling.com.
Yeah.
Get to that website first. And then make yourself very social. Prove to everybody that it's just a big fat myth that homeschoolers are not socialized people because that's just such nonsense. I think they're too socialized, and I know our family is too socialized, and we have to constantly pull back because
Yeah.
we're gone every day. We're doing things with people, and so when you get started, think about that. Think about that and recognize that that is just a myth. You may have heard people saying, "Yeah, whatever, you're homeschooling. You're going to be one of those weirdos that aren't socialized." Laugh that off because it truly is a myth. It truly, there's no truth to it, not with most people. And so, set to prove that wrong, get out there and find other homeschoolers, make friends, help your kids to make friends, sign up for groups, get into your local support groups, go to the homeschool roller skate days like we're doing tomorrow. Um, because if you're surrounding yourself with like-minded people, you're going to do better. You're going to feel supported.
Yeah,
And pretty soon it'll be time for you to be supporting others and to be coming alongside
that's
and
true.
being that mama who cares and who's been there and done that. And it'll be your turn. It'll be your turn. So just get on that road now. Get on that track early. Get to know people. Get
So we have a
involved.
loaded question for you now.
Okay.
Tell us how TOS got its start. This is always a fun one.
Um, TOS was first an eBay business. It was an eBay store called the Old Schoolhouse. And back in the 90s, computers were coming out, home computers anyway. The internet, dial up, remember dial up? I had dial up. You hear that modem going. And I was very excited by it because I could see that that was going to be a cool thing. And it was. And I had friends who were selling on eBay and they were doing auctions and people were bidding on their stuff. And I just was so excited to see that. To me, that was just the best thing since sliced bread. My husband's an artist. If you go, our last name is Suarez, right? If you go to studiosuarez.com, that's my husband. He does bronze. In fact, the Oval Office at the White House has one of his pieces right there on the desk, right behind the president.
That is
That is
incredible.
yeah, he does bronze art. So he hasn't done it in a while. He does it still a little bit, but go to studiosuarez.com and you will see his beautiful bronze art. He's got gorgeous art. So what happened was he was doing his work. I was homeschooling, but I really wanted to do the whole eBay thing. I wanted to sell stuff, and I wanted people to bid on my stuff, and I wanted to see auctions go sky high. And I was reading books, and so I did not know what to sell. I started playing around with different things. Didn't want to do clothing because I didn't have a camera. The digital cameras were really far and few between back then. There weren't any. They were expensive too. I didn't have one. I was afraid to even mess with that. So but I can write pretty good. So I thought, okay, I'll just write descriptions. I need to find a product that I can describe and then people will want it. No pictures, no pictures at all. And so clothing wasn't going to work because you got to show pictures and little, antiques or household items or whatever. That's not going to work. You got to show pictures. So it was a natural fit to do books. And I was already homeschooling, but I really didn't know anything about homeschooling. I just knew that I was homeschooling. I was kind of new at it. And so I had a lot of books. I had a lot of curriculum stuff that I was done with it. So I started putting that on eBay. And I didn't have a name yet. Wasn't calling it the old schoolhouse because I didn't have a niche yet. I didn't have a common thread. I just was throwing stuff at the screen to see what would stick. And people started bidding on my stuff and they wanted my little Abeka used book and things like that. And DVDs and videos, because back then DVDs were new even pretty much. And so I had a lot of videos, VHS. And so we're putting all that stuff up and people started bidding on it. I had people from Philippines, Russia, China, all over the world, Italy, countries I had never heard of, and then of course all 50 states. And when people would buy my stuff, I would write down their email address and their address because I had to ship it. I just kept all that stuff, files, for your records. And so that went on for about, I don't know, not even a year. I started attracting homeschoolers because it was a natural fit. And then I found some places in Sacramento. We lived in California at the time. Found some places in Sacramento that were book depositories. Don't know if you've ever heard of a book depository. I hadn't, but it's where the public schools waste all their stuff and throw it all into a big pit. And I would go into these places, big old building with literally a million books in there. And some of these books, they were even on shelves somewhere, but a lot of them were just stacked up on the floor. And had OSHA seen that, they probably would have been shut down. But these books would go to the ceiling, just piles, just towers of books. And some of them, they're hardback because they're all curriculum. They're all textbooks. The public school didn't want them anymore. And you would crack open a book and you'd hear it crack because it had never been opened. So the public schools, they get a lot of money. They put all this dollars into textbooks and things, and then they use some of it, and some of it they're like, don't want it. So they send it off to the book. Yes, a lot of waste. And to me, that was like, okay, I'm here. I'll take it. So it was, I had to pay for it, but it was very cheap. It was pennies on the dollar. So I would get a big old book and sell it for maybe $60 and I maybe paid $1 for it, So you do that over and over and you're making some money and pretty soon I was paying our mortgage. I was actually our mortgage was covered and my husband thought it was awesome. He and the kids, they would bag it up and ship it off. They were always at the post office and kind of a family affair. And then I named it the Old Schoolhouse. I thought, well, it's got to have I like Little House on the Prairie. I like, old time little schoolhouse, so fun, so cozy. So I just called it the Old Schoolhouse. But then people kept asking homeschool questions. And I was like, I'm just a salesperson. I don't know. I mean, yeah, I homeschool my kids, but they were asking questions that actually a lot of them I did know the answer just instinctively. Like, well, because you have 4 kids, Gena, how do you homeschool the 4th grader along with the kindergartner? How do you do that at the same time? And I just told them what I did. It was not to be advice like, oh, I've arrived, let me tell you how it's done. Not at all. I would just tell them, well, this is how we do it. It works because we train our big ones to help with the little ones. And it actually helps them if they're reading out loud to the little ones. They're all being schooled and just different things you can do. And anyway, lots of questions like that. And I found that I was getting the same 10 or 20 questions over and over again. And I thought, I should just write this down because I'll have 10 people ask me the same thing. I have to keep typing it out. And I thought I could do a newsletter. I could do a newsletter to my customers. By then I had thousands. I had thousands of customers and I had their email addresses. And I thought, I didn't know what spam was back in the 90s. I didn't know what that was, but I spammed them. I sent them all an email saying, "Hey, you're my customer at eBay, and I got this newsletter, and it's free, and I'm going to send it to you." And I sent it to them. Well, a couple people complained. eBay got a hold of me. They didn't. They didn't. I was a power seller. They didn't knock me off, but they just said, "You can't. That's called spam. You can't do that." I was like, "Oh my goodness, I didn't know." Okay, so, but what I could do was I had their addresses, and there was no such thing as spam by snail mail. So I sent them the newsletter. We printed them off
Wow.
and we sent it, and it took off. It took off. Oh my, it took off,
That's
and it was free. It was free for a long time. And then it went color, and we started charging for it because the first print bill was $10,000. I remember thinking, what? And now I won't even tell you. It's astronomical now. It's 10,000. I wish it was 10,000. But we just started selling ads, and we just started getting people involved and doing product reviews. And pretty soon, Bob Jones and Matthew C. and Abeka and Christian Liberty Press and all of them just came on board. And the rest is history. So 20 years later. So that is how that is how this crazy magazine got started.
Wow.
eBay.
So you've always been kind of entrepreneurial, if that's the right word.
Yes. Yeah, even as a child. And that's what, remember we were talking about finding out what your kids' interests are. And I have children who are very entrepreneurial. In fact, my son Levi, the one who works for Aspen over Colorado, he's my most entrepreneur. He's very similar to me. He tells people, he goes, "I'm like my mom." And he wanted to sell things. He started a business at 15, and he was successful. He actually hired one of his older brothers for a bit.
Hmm.
And he was very, very good with, and now he's extremely successful because his job at Aspen, he is running offices. So he has to bring in clients. It's huge what he has to do. It's very, very stressful, but he excels. He just excels. And so other kids of mine don't care about business. So it's amazing. You have a kid, you have a bunch of kids, and they're all different. And that's why it's so important to figure out, well, what kid likes what are these kids' passions? And you may have 7 different passions for 7 different children. But when I was little, my dad told me that we would make some cupcakes. So I was 6 years old. We lived in Alaska, and he said, "Let's make some cupcakes." And then we did that. And then he said, "Now," because my dad was kind of entrepreneurial too. He said, "Now I want you to go." We lived on base in Alaska, and he said, "I want you to go to every single neighbor." We lived in a courtyard, so there was probably 30 neighbors there. And he goes, "You go knock on the door with your plate of cupcakes, and you sell them. You tell them that they're 25 cents each." I was beside myself. I was in heaven. I thought, "You're kidding me. Really?" And so I went, and I hadn't even reached maybe 4 or 5 doors when everything was gone. They were
Wow.
purchasing so fast. And that right there, I really think that at that point in my life, I realized I like sales. I like
Hmm.
marketing a lot. I enjoy it. It is fun. There's nothing more fun. And so when I was 6, I knew. And after that, when I was little, like at 10 years old, other kids would be outside playing. I was in the classifieds. I was in the newspapers. I was going through and looking at all job pages, and thinking about, like, when I do interviews or being interviewed. And I was weird. I was the weird one. But I
Well,
didn't have
so
any.
I think a lot of moms might see something in themselves that they have, and they think, okay, when I'm done raising my kids, then I can start doing this. But you started this business when you had kids. So I have a question. What is your secret to raising and home educating 7 children while growing a business as expansive as TOS has become?
My secret is my husband. Without him, forget it. Forget it. It would have folded up a long time ago. It wouldn't have been able to happen. He's a really good guy. Sometimes he'll tell me, "What do you want me to do? You want me to take the kids to?" He's into flight and airplane stuff. He wants to buy an airplane. That's the latest conversation we're having. He announced to me recently he's buying an airplane. Um, that'll be interesting. But he takes the kids to flight museums. He takes them places, and he has conversations with them. He has Bible studies with them. He watches documentaries on TV with them. He just does a lot with them, and he does a lot with the company. Anything I can't do or don't want to do, he does. And at conventions, he's the one out on the floor talking with advertisers. So I don't mind talking to the public. I'll be behind the booth, but he is out there talking, and the advertisers know him. Everyone knows Paul. And so again, without that, no way. There's just that is my secret. It's having a good husband that is very much on the same page, and we're on the same page of each other. He'll probably get his airplane. Okay, we're on the same page.
I love it. Douglas says, my children participate with my wife and I in our home based business with several different focuses. It's great for them to see real life firsthand.
Yes, yeah, no, that's really good. I agree. The more you can do together, the better. And again, you're building memories, you're building relationship, and these kids, they're going to remember certain things about their childhood. They're going to remember the times that you spent with them, the sensitive time, the meaningful times, the times that they learned hard lessons, and you're there. You're there. And if their dad is there too, oh, so important.
Yeah. So before I get to my last question, I just want to put it out there. If anybody has a question, to put it in the comments. And if you leave a question, you will be entered to win a prize. And I'd love to have that image up so you can see what the prizes are. We have some awesome totes, Hey Mama mugs, and a $25 Amazon gift card. So leave a comment and you'll be entered to win. And also tomorrow is the last day of the Hey Mama, We've Got Your Back sale. The code is support, and you can get a quarterly membership for only $39. So it's pretty incredible. It was a great deal. So tomorrow's the last day. So if you want that tote and you want to just check it out, Schoolhouse Teachers has over 475 really incredible courses. So it's not just courses. There's unit studies, videos. Some are video-based courses. There's just a whole wide variety.
And most of them have answer keys and the curriculum guides, all the stuff for the parent too. And you don't have to buy any textbooks. It's all there. It's all included.
And there's different variety of teaching methods. There is a whole Charlotte Mason section. There's the school boxes, which is fairly new. Whatever grade that you need, you just click on the school box and it has everything you need for an entire year. And it all comes with the one price for your whole family. So.
And if you don't like something, just throw it out and get something else. There's hundreds of courses and they are high quality. So you have access to every one of them. So go crazy.
Melissa was wondering if the homeschool convention you're going to is the Rocky Mountain Homeschool Conference.
If that's the one in Denver on Father's Day weekend, which I think it is, then yes, that is the one. And our senior editor, Deborah Wooler, will also be there. And I think our CEO, Angela, will be there. It's going to be fun. We are going to be having a great time. So please do come, and we want to see you. We want to meet you.
That is awesome. That's going to be so fun. So my last question for you is, what are your future goals for TOS?
Future goals. Well, I mean, in marketing meetings and sales meetings, we have those goals, and we're on different tracks. But I think, honestly, we love the Lord. We know that He is sovereign. He is in control. He directs every step, every day. We wake up in the morning and He sets us on our path. And so whatever He has in store for TOS is what we want. It is what we want. Oh man, to go outside of that scares me. And He has a way of showing us. He opens doors and He introduces us to people, and questions come, and we have an excellent staff. They will come up with the best ideas, the best plans. And when that happens, we just say, thank you, Lord, and go for it, and so we don't know. Whatever God wants. And that's what it'll be, whatever He wants, His will.
Amen. So I just want to share again, pay only $39 for a Schoolhouse Teachers membership with the code support. And you can get that through the end of the day tomorrow if you head over to schoolhouseteachers.com. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Dustry is sharing, don't forget the unit studies and videos. They are a huge part of our school. And that's another thing. You can choose what you want to use. You don't have to use everything. Mm-hmm. Diamond is sharing, I know you rotate refresh courses on schoolhouseteachers.com every so often. When do you think you will have the 2021-2022 courses listed?
That's a good question. And we're always working on that. In some years, we roll out a lot more items, other courses than other years. I know that there are things being worked on behind the scenes. So stay tuned, because those who are members, current members, they get that information first. We have a Facebook group, and also we email the ST people. We let you know first before we let the public know generally, and it's exciting. We've got some good stuff coming down the pike, so keep your eye out. Stay tuned.
Well, thank you so much, Gena, for taking the time to spend with us and share with us about TOS and about your experience homeschooling and answering your questions. So we appreciate your time.
You. I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed it a great deal. So thank you.
And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And we will be in touch and let you know when our next interview will be. And have a wonderful week.